Jason, so are you working with people online too? Are they like reaching out to you to gain your consultancy or something like that in transitioning? And if so, what are some of the more extreme results you've seen? Because I don't know if you remember, Mike, but Sean Baker said something about he found that even genetic diseases were improving. Do you remember
Mhm.
which ones it were? So what kind of extreme results are you seeing with this?
So that's the beauty of it is I don't train a lot. I do train, but I never wanted that to be like my full time, have 30 clients at a time. It's the, hey, you just need extra help, right? Because there's always those people. And I got asked so many times, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to open it up for a little bit. But I've had the benefit of being able to see crazy stuff like people lifelong Crohn's, right? Completely reversing it. People reversing gout, people reversing rheumatoid arthritis. I had a lady who it ended up being a false diagnosis. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and then she went low carb and then carnivore and completely reversed it. She was on 11 different antibiotics. She had a stroke. She got sepsis in the hospital. She got
Oh.
massive infections, diagnosed with Parkinson's. Basically a vegetable. And then went low carb and then went carnivore and got off everything. Right? The doctor said you can't do that. You can't get off your antibacterial. She had MRSA, right? Like you have to stay on this. Got off everything. There was these are the ones that like actually like hit me in the feels. There was a lady that I interviewed who was in and out of psychiatric institutions for 20 years, massive psychological problems, hallucinations, psychosis, extreme eating disorders, and, was 70 pounds, 60, 70 pounds, was, in and out of institutions, finally decided on her own, I'm going to stop doing everything that they're telling me to do, started eating 2 pounds of meat a day, and now is off all of her antipsychosis medications. And there's multiple people, bipolar disorder, extreme depression, like on and on and on and on. And it's just crazy. And that's where I get really fired up when people like try to talk a lot of shit. Like if you want to not recommend that for an entire population, like if you don't think the FDA should come out and say everybody should eat 3 pounds of meat and nothing else, that's fine. Right? Like if you don't want that to be an overreaching, broad nutrition guidelines for the general public, okay. But they come out and they try and discredit what people are accomplishing. And these are lifelong, you can't live with these psychotic illnesses. Like they're literally ruining their lives. And at the age of 40, they now can live normal. They're like, yeah, I'm like totally fine. I'm not on any medications anymore. I'm not, I have gone through this, crazy healing. And then of course there's a story of, people losing 400 and 500 pounds doing it, which, that can be attributed to a lot of diets, but there are not many things that I have come across that people have not been able to overcome. And is it strict carnivore? Maybe, right? But I think it's this getting rid of all of these potential toxins. And when you are immune compromised, it all becomes exaggerated, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, could the average person eat this? Sure. Could somebody who has all these autoimmune conditions? Maybe not, right? Maybe they're having an overreaction to any number of the thousand of, bullshit chemicals that they're exposed to every day. And getting rid of those has allowed their body to heal. I keep hearing people like, you don't need to detox. You don't need to, uh, eat these diets devoid of all of these chemicals because your liver does that for you. Your kidneys do that for you. Like, well, what if you just overload the fuck out of them and they can't do it anymore? Right?
Yeah.
Like, there is something to be said for just overloading your system with a bunch of crap. So yeah, there's so many things. One of the first ones I saw was a guy with MS, permanent disabilities in a wheelchair, and he lost like 250 pounds. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, really? He's like, yeah, like it's like changed my life. And so there's so many stories out there like of people just overcoming. There's one of the crazier ones. A guy was like full body covered in eczema, was born with eczema, came out of the womb with eczema. And yeah, like you watch those commercials, right? You watch the psoriasis commercials, the drug commercials, and they're like, oh, I don't want to go outside because I have like patches on my arms or something. This guy from head to toe, just covered in eczema, and went carnivore and completely resolved it. And I'm like, that's life changing, right? Like I've had a little bit of eczema. I cannot imagine like the mental turmoil that you have to go through every time you look in a mirror and every time you go out in public and people, it's like burn victims, right? Like the amount of mental stress that they go through, realizing that everybody's looking at them, right? Everybody can see me. Everybody's noticed this. Like, so I go through all these, plastic surgeries. And so people that overcome that kind of stuff is just like that's regaining your life.
Absolutely. And I have a very close friend of mine who has pretty severe psoriasis, so much so that, just bending his arms can cause his elbows to bleed and crack. And if he gets out the car, there can be scales of skin left behind and stuff like that. And he was seeing a bunch of very top doctors in Swiss. And when I mentioned things like carnivore and even sent him videos, he was sure that this couldn't be possible because he needs creams. I need cream, like cortisol cream. It's the only thing that works. You mentioned that you're speaking to quite a lot of doctors. Do you see now a trend changing? Is this getting more mainstream? And what do you like? How do you see the whole carnivore movement coming up in the future?
Yeah, so I could speak to that as well because I've had eczema since I was little, right? Like in the winters, it used to crack and bleed, and I've been to so many dermatologists, taken all the creams, all the everything, and nothing worked. And then as I got older, it got better. But when I did my 4K standard American diet, about 10 days in, do you know what weeping eczema is? So I had weeping eczema on my hands. Like somewhere on my profile, there's a before and after, and like my hands were oozing. Like I had to like carry around like tissues to like wipe up the ooze that was coming out of my hands. And the moment I stopped the standard, unfortunately, it took me like 4 to 6 months for it to completely go away. But all of that happened the moment I started inundating myself with these ultra processed foods. But I've had psoriasis. I had like psoriasis on my knees. Not terrible. Again, like none of these huge issues, but all these things that started to get better once I went carnivore. As far as mainstream, I really do think it is. People are talking about it, which is the first indication, right? If nobody's talking about it, if nobody's doing it, if there's not, big presences, then it's not a real thing, right? Like you can, whatever diet you want to talk about, there's some diets where people start and you're like, yeah, it's not a thing. Like, no, like maybe 10 people do it. Maybe a couple celebrities do it. Nobody's actually talking about it. People are talking about it. There's physicians, there's medical professionals, there's, people with PhDs that are promoting it. There's registered dietitians that are promoting it, nutritionists that are promoting it. You have neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, cardiac surgeons, cardiologists, emergency room physicians, every angle that you can go, more and more people are starting to recognize the benefit of carnivore. And even if it's not carnivore, it's the benefit of going lower carb. You have, psychiatrists, MDs in psychiatry that are more and more promoting ketogenic diets for mental health. There's more and more studies coming out, more and more case studies. And so I think you're starting to see a shift to lower carb. Keto diet's been around forever, right? Like that was a treatment for, bipolar back in the 1900s, early 1900s. So that's not new. Carnivore is just a little bit stricter version of keto. I think carnivore has gotten its place because keto has turned into this. Well, it's keto, right? Like go down any health food aisle, and you can find keto snacks, right? And they're all garbage. They're all just terrible. The only reason it's keto is because it doesn't have carbs, right? Like, So keto has kind of gone to this mainstream. You can now do dirty keto, kind of how vegan, you can do dirty vegan now. And so carnivore is just this like, hey, let's get back to the cleaner side of this. But I think there are more and more people recognizing the benefits of low carb carnivore, and it definitely is gaining. It's just Google it, right? Just look at Google Trends, and you can find every news site with some kind of article talking about it.
So, what do you do for work?
Oh, this now. So I actually, part of the reason I started this social media was I was in sales and I just had shitty hours, right? Like worked weekends. I was managing a team. So if somebody was staying late, I had to stay late. Like, and with little kids, I was like, man, this sucks. Like, I don't want to do this. And so I actually quit my job to be a stay-at-home dad. And then I was like, all right, I got to do something. Like, I got to make money somehow. Was actually doing crypto for a while, and then the government just likes to fuck crypto anytime they can. So I was like, I got to get out of this. It's too much volatility. And then I started this. And so now this is what I do full time. So it's a combination of social media, coaching. I have a business with some products online as well. So it's, I got my hand in 10, 15 different cookie jars, but this is what I do for work now.
Yeah, I was looking at the one scale, the Hume scale. You were pushing that a little bit, so I was like, oh fuck it, I want this guy on the podcast. Like, I'll support him. So I bought one of those Hume scales. Yeah, it's nice to see guys like able to make a living doing this shit. That's awesome. It's funny you said the dirty keto and all that. I don't think I've seen a fat carnivore. I've seen fat vegans. I've seen plenty of fat vegans. I've never seen a fat carnivore. At least not one that's been doing it for a while.
It's difficult. So I've done some of these experiments and it's pissed off some people. I've had some rather large accounts. They actually blew my TikTok up. Like, I hate TikTok. I think TikTok's the most worthless app in the world. But I had like 5,000 followers on TikTok. Like, I was going crazy everywhere else, and TikTok was just like, yeah, whatever. But I was like, I'm just gonna keep posting. It takes me 30 seconds. And it ended up being like 5 fitness accounts, all with over like 750,000 followers, do like a reaction to one of my videos. And it blew my TikTok up. I also got a bunch of death threats. That's why I hate TikTok. Like, I've literally gotten people like death threats. They're like, you should go hang yourself. Like, you better hope I never see you in public. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, so like, I don't even remember where I was going with this. But yeah,
fat carnivore.
Fat carnivore. That's right. And one of them that they picked up and they did, I had this one guy, TNF Nutrition. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's a rather large account. Did like a 5-part series on some of my experiments, because I honestly, if I stay strict carnivore, I physically don't think I can get fat. Like, I don't think I can force myself to eat enough to get fat. And I've done, like, I did an experiment where I'm like, I'm going to try and do a bulk. I'm going to reverse diet my way up. I'm going to see how many calories I can get to, see if I can gain weight. And so I started at 3,000 calories, did it for 2 weeks, and then I did 3,500 for 2 weeks, and then 4,000 for 2 weeks, and then 4,500 for 2 weeks. And I lost a little bit of weight at 3,000, and then 3,500 the same, 4,000 the same, 4,500 the same. And then eventually I hit a point where I was like, I'm done. Like, I just can't do it anymore. I had one day where I was tracking all my stuff, which I hate doing, but if I'm going to present it, I have to like present the data. And so I ate my food. I'm like, all right, I got to put it in. I'm probably like 500 calories away for the day. And I tallied it up and I was like 2,000 short for the day. And I was like, fuck. I was like, I'm done. I literally cannot eat. And I didn't eat the rest of the day. And I ate like 2,000 calories the next day. And I was like, I'm just done. I don't want to eat anymore. but I can't. Like, you can chalk it up to whatever you want. You can chalk it up to my increases in NEAT, my energy excretion, however you want to chop it up. I don't move that much. I work out 4 to 5 days a week. I get 5,000 steps a day. I literally sit at home. I don't leave the house that much. I'm low-key a hermit. Like, I just don't move. Like, I'm wearing my Apple Watch, like my Samsung watch every day. I'm averaging 4,900 steps a day. Like, there's no rhyme or reason, but I just I cannot sustain enough food to gain excess weight, which brought it back. It's why carnivore will never be for the athletes that need to stay bigger, right? You'll never have heavyweight powerlifters because look what happened to Eddie Hall. Eddie Hall dropped a shit ton of weight. And guess what? Like, weight affects how much you can move, whether it's fat or muscle. If you're going to be in the upper echelons of powerlifting, you need the extra weight. It's just tough. Like, I think we're just biologically adverse to storing that as fat. And then I think the issue, and you brought it up, it's the carbs and the fat together. You can go into like the Krebs cycle and the body choosing what it uses for fuel. But if you inundate your body with a whole bunch of fuel sources, excess carbs, excess fats, you're going to store it, right? If you only give your body one option, just look at all the studies that they compare. It's almost always, always, always protein equated, low carb, high fat, high carb, low fat, right? You never see people saying, coming out and being like, low protein, high carb, high fat is the way to go. Mm-hmm. It's a recipe for a bad time. And that's exactly what we do. We eat a whole bunch of fat. We eat a whole bunch of carbs. You remove one of those, you're going to have better results.
What are you mentioned gut microbiome before. Now, I happen to think what we know about the gut microbiome is, I mean, it's as crazy as it's as crazy as our ability to regulate weed in this country and weed gummies and all this shit, right? It's just a fucking Wild West. No one knows anything. The prebiotics, the probiotics, this, that, the other. You should be having lactobacillus. This seems to there's billions of cultures. We don't know. But my wife took some. She felt better. I took some. Guts. You know what I mean? Like, I don't fucking notice anything. Have you taken them? Have you had people take them with the carnivore? What do you think?
So I have taken them in the past. I haven't taken them with carnivore. I have taken them in the past with zero benefits whatsoever. I do think there's something to be said for certain fermented foods, like kefir. Like, you can do kefir and carnivore. Cheeses, you're going to get some of that fermented food benefits. But I think you have to look at the gut microbiome as you basically, how your microbiome is doing based on how all these other things are doing, right? So, like, what do we know that your gut affects? It affects your mental health. It affects your energy. It affects your digestion. It affects inflammation. So if you take somebody whose mental clarity is getting better, like, they don't have the brain fog anymore, their energy is more stable, they have less inflammation, their digestive issues are getting better, their skin issues are getting better, chronic issues are getting better, that's a pretty good indication that your microbiome is doing pretty well, right? Like, they have tests, but those are bullshit. Like, let's be honest.
No idea.
Like, nobody knows anything. So logically, I'm going to look at things that the gut might affect, which is pretty much everything, right? Let's be honest. So if I have all of these improvements, it stands to reason that my gut microbiome is benefiting or doing pretty well. And so that's how I look at it. I think fermented foods is the first one to add into anybody that might be having some of these issues, but everything associated with gut microbiome got better for me. And so I'm like, I don't need to add a probiotic or a prebiotic. I don't need to go. And it could be the fact that I eat a decent amount of cheese. I did BBBE, which is beef, bacon, butter, and eggs. I don't like it, right? Like, cause it's just like, I love cheese. I just love cheese. And I found that as long as I eat higher quality cheese, as long as I'm not going to the store and getting the generic brand, I do totally fine. I have no issues with it whatsoever. So it could be the fact that I eat a lot of cheese that's helping. But whatever I am eating, it's helping everything associated with my gut microbiome. And that's what I go off of.
And this link between gut microbiome and obviously being part of the enteric nervous system, which is so important for our mental health. And is it correct that like 90% of the body's stored serotonin is also found in the gut, in the stomach?
I have heard that. I haven't researched it a ton. But yeah, there's so many things that we don't even think about the gut, and serotonin's one of them. And so we try to, we specialize everything. Like we get to, mental, and we're like, oh, well, it's different, right? Well, no, it's not really not, right? Like all of these things in the gut affect things in your brain. And yeah, I have heard that. I had a super interesting conversation with a Harvard trained psychiatrist who was talking about, she didn't talk about the serotonin that much, but how diet affects your brain and how going lower carb improves ketones, and ketones benefits your brain because it needs less insulin and you have less waste product and less byproduct of glucose metabolism, and all of these things leading to better mental health outcomes. And it just reinforces that food has such an effect on everything. And it does. It all starts in our gut, right? Like the best way I've heard it is we think of the skin being the largest organ with access to our environment. It's actually our digestive system, right? Because if you think about it, nothing actually enters our body until it gets through the digestive system. Like we have to absorb it through the digestive system. So that entire lining of our digestive system is actually our exposure to the outside world. And our digestive system determines what gets in and what gets out. And so if you have a whole bunch of issues, just like if you had a bunch of skin issues, right? And you are letting a whole bunch of stuff in that we're not supposed to, it stands to reason you're going to have a bunch of issues. So I think it's really fascinating how many things that diet affects, and people can just do it for themselves. Like just change your diet and see what happens. And if you have a bunch of changes, it's probably diet related, regardless of what your doctor says. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing I'll do. People will write a prescription, right? Oh man, you're like not feeling good. You got some downtimes. I'm going to write you an SSI, or I'm going to write you whatever it is. I'm going to write you a prescription to help. Well, what if I just change my diet? Why don't I try that first?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it's a shame with the whole, the prescription route. It got a really bad rap. And I think it became so big because we're so fucking lazy. I mean, think about how many people, the only people that do the carnivore aspect that reach out to you are people that are gung ho about it. We do a lot of, I own a gym in New Jersey, and I train a ton of athletes, but we also have adults. We recently started doing a couple of years now, started doing more adult training. And I've never dealt with people that weren't motivated to do well, because if you're not good, you get cut. So like, hey, bro. And I mean, I've said to my pro athletes multiple times, like, hey, bro, it's not my family I got to feed. Like these are your problems. You get cut, that's on you. So you either do this or you don't. And it's very easy to motivate them. With people that aren't easy to motivate, are very happy being miserable. I shouldn't say happy, satisfied being miserable with where they're currently at. The doctors, they go for the low hanging fruit where it's, hey, what's going to be the biggest bang for the buck? I don't know if it's about the money for them. I think it's about like, what's going to get you on the right path the quickest? Oh, you have an itis, cortisone. Here you go. Orthopedic itis. Here's your cortisone. That'll get rid of it. You want to do 6 weeks of physical therapy, or you want them to try to get rid of this now? You know what I mean? Like, time, what's going to work best for you? And same thing with a lot of these pills. Like, oh, you got a little indigestion? Yeah, heartburn, probably from this. Here's a Tums, or here's whatever's prescription, whatever. So like, I feel bad for them because we don't deal with that demographic as much as they do. So I'm sure what they do helps probably 75% just fine compared to the 25% that need the little extra. And they're like, hey, listen, you're in the 75% clinic, or maybe the 80-20 sort of thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I do feel bad for a lot of internists and physicians and stuff that do get a relatively bad rap when, one, it's what they know, and two, it's helping a lot of people. You know, it's just like the people it's not helping you do hear about, you know?
Yeah, I think it started with good intentions, but it's a byproduct of our society, right? Like, if you think about it from a doctor's perspective, you have, how many visits do you have with somebody? One? Like, are they going to come back for a second one? Maybe. And then you have the fact that you're just inundated. You go try and get a doctor's appointment. Like, go try and get one in other countries, right? See how long it takes you to get it. So you have one shot, right? It's Eminem. One shot, one opportunity. And so how can you affect the most change? You can see the most people possible, and you can alleviate 50% or more of people's issues. Now, might 49.9% of them develop issues as a result of that? Well, maybe, but we're helping the majority of people, right? And so I don't think it started with bad intentions, but that's actually Sean Baker's story. I don't know if you guys talked to him about that. He started realizing that he could do less and less surgeries by helping people get rid of inflammation with their diet. And guess what? Orthopedic surgeons don't get paid to not do surgery, right? Like that's just the reality of it, right? And when it's doctors, it's a problem, right? When it's a salesperson, that's business, right? Like, I'm trying to convince somebody to buy something that they don't actually need. And if they do it, well, then I'm just good at my job. Surgeons are, well, I'm trying to, they have ethics and all that. And I don't think there are necessarily, bad intentioned physicians out there, the majority of them, but that's their job, right? Your job is to address somebody's problem. And if there's a surgical route that can fix it, to do it, right? They get alleviated pain, you make money, the world goes around. And we're just not set up. The American healthcare system is just not set up for an orthopedic surgeon to sit down and go, well, what if for the next 4 weeks you try this diet and see if we can lower the inflammation so I don't have to replace your knee? It's just not the way we're set up. So, you start running into all of these issues, and it's kind of a beast that it's our fault, right? It's society's fault. It's healthcare's fault. It's the government's fault. It's everybody's fault. And it's really not going to change until people start realizing that, hey, maybe if do I want to recover for 6 weeks after this meniscus surgery, or do I want to maybe address my diet and see if I can get my inflammation down and I don't need to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the easiest time to be alive, where I can take this and order an orange. We're in the dead of winter here in New Jersey. I can order an orange to get delivered to my house probably within 45 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't have to get up. And we have so many fucking issues. So many self-imposed issues between the diet, the exercise route. But these it just the doctor route, so we got the boot from our pediatrician's office, because my one daughter, she's pretty much close to fully vaxxed except for her MMR. Well, she got her MMR because we went to visit Brooker in Switzerland, and they had a big measles outbreak over there at some point he had told me about. So I was like, all right, we get the MMR, and we'll be okay. And we delayed all the vaccines. She responded okay to most of them. She had a little eczema or something, like, who knows what it's from. And she got the vaccine and didn't speak for a month. And it was really, really scary for us. And dude, thank God, she's cool. She's back to normal. She's good now. And then we're like, all right, well, she's close to fully vaccinated. Let's just hold off on her. And then we have our youngest daughter, Alessia, who were like, yo, we're going to hold off on a lot of stuff for a while. Like, we're going to take our time. And the doctor's office was like, all right, cool. And then slowly but surely, they're like, yo, not cool, not cool. And then we got kicked out. And we told them the situation. They're like, yeah, sorry, it's not from that. Like, you're fine. Like, okay, whatever. So now, whole story circling around, like they do get, if I believe it's 85% of your total roster is fully vaccinated, they do get money from it. They get, I think it's like $400 per patient if 85% a reimbursement or a bonus from the insurance company. So if you have 1,000 people there, like that's a big payday. I'd kick me out too. So like, and now most of these people do think that they're doing well. You know, they're doing the right thing. And dude, I mean, I happen to believe that vaccines work. Like most vaccines work. And I think all of them have a purpose. You know what I mean? Like it's not just a money grab, but there's that balance. It's tough. And I think a lot of these doctors fall into that too, where I remember I was in a car accident and it was a bad one. Totaled my car. Wasn't my fault. Entirely someone else's fault. Cut me off going like 80 miles an hour, some shit like that. Like real bad. And it really fucked up my shoulder. But I went to the doctor. I drove. I was perfectly fine. Went to the emergency room, or I went to the orthopedist. And he's talking to me. He goes, listen, you should probably get an injection, wink, wink, like for insurance claims type stuff. Like, this is just the fucking game, you know? And to me, I was like, no, I'm not getting fucking cortisone. Like, it's okay. I don't need cortisone. Like, it's not that bad. But it's the whole, like, the person isn't bad. People are idiots, or people are, you know, it's, I don't know. This is the philosophy part of it, that it's tough for me to sit on both sides of the fence. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a legality thing to it too. So first of all, you have doctors who have been told there's only one way. So you've went through years and years of schooling that this is the way it is. And then you get out and you see the statistics that like 1 in 3 providers will be sued for malpractice at some point in their career. Okay. So the majority of what we got to do is we've got to make sure that we're not, we have to cover ourselves from a liability standpoint. Yep. So how do I cover myself from a liability standpoint? I do what the government recommends. Yep. Right. And then, oh, by the way, this company over here is going to pay me for doing what my school told me I should do, and what the government tells me, and what my insurance company tells me I should do. Okay, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
And so then like you get entrenched in this, and then we just don't ask questions. And then, regardless of where you stand politically, you have COVID happen, and then everybody goes, wait a minute. What if I want to question this? And they go, no, we don't do that. And then they're like, well, what if I want to question this now? Like the vaccines. What if I want to question my child's vaccines? Nah, we don't do that here. Like, go somewhere else if you want to do that. And then people are like, well, if I'm questioning that and then I'm questioning this, well, what about this now? What about these drugs? Or what about this? What about this baby formula? What about this food? And now you have these doctors, which are people are with no education, right? Like you've seen that sign. Don't confuse your 20-minute Google search with my, medical degree. And they're now, and I get that, right? You spent your entire life doing this. This is your life's work. And now some random person with internet access comes in and goes, well, I don't know that I want to do this vaccine because I have read that there could be these issues. And so now you have this like pushback, and it's become this huge issue. And honestly, we're kind of at this point of people over here that want to do it how we've established it for years and years and years, and people over here that want to say, no, I don't think we should do anything you say. And like at some point we're gonna have to come in the middle, or it's just gonna blow up.
Man, we should start talking religion now. We got dude, bro, this I could fucking bend your ear all day. Carnivore JT on Twitter, on Instagram, not on fucking TikTok. Are you on YouTube as well?
I am on TikTok. I got like 60,000 followers on TikTok now.
Do you? What?
Yeah.
Tell me real quick. Like, I have one of the reasons why I don't like I haven't put a lot of things out in the past is I don't know. I don't have the stomach just to be shot at like that. You said 5, 6 major accounts all came at you at once. What was that like? Like, how did you feel about that? Like, what did that do to you?
I've become numb to it, honestly. I actually have my New Year's resolution. I don't really do New Year's resolutions. My New Year's resolution is to not argue with idiots in the comments as much. Part of it's entertaining for me, right? Like, because most of the people I used to think that, right? I used to be a Seco bro through and through. And so I know where they're coming from. And a lot of it is, I'm like, you're just doing what somebody regurgitated. Somebody said this is what it is. And now you want to fight with people based on that. I can brush off the people who are just like overly violent. I'm like, man, there's something going on in your life for you to lash out to a complete stranger who's talking about food, right? Like, and I don't even go on and say, hey, everybody should do carnivore. Like, most of my content is providing people with rebuttals to what they get inundated with all day long, right? Like, carnivores can cause colon cancer, carnivores can cause heart disease. And so then I just take those studies and be like, it's not that clear cut. That's most of my content. So for some people to react that way to it, like, that's on you. Like, there's something going on with you. It might be a little bit different if I was, like, preaching, like, everybody should do carnivore. This is why you should do carnivore. Everybody do carnivore. Don't do veganism, do carnivore. But I also had a lot of experience dealing with vegans on Twitter. Like, that's how I got first popular on Twitter, is I just argued with vegans all day long. That being said, I'll post stuff about thermodynamics every once in a while. And after the, 1,000th person comes in and be like, you're a fucking idiot, bro. It's the first law of thermodynamics. Literally everybody knows that. It starts to get a little old. But I just ignore. Like, I respond until I'm done. And then I toy with people sometimes too. I'm like, they're like, you're losing the argument. I'm like, bro, you're the only one having an argument here. I'm just keeping you going for engagement. Like, my favorite line is like, bro, I'm like, and I tell people this and they keep going. And so then it just becomes fun. And I tell people my favorite line. So I'm like, bro, I'm at the adult table playing chess. You're at the kiddie table playing Go Fish. Like, we're not on the same level here. And they get so mad. And then eventually I just stop talking. I'm like, all right, whatever. But I only do it on my page. Like, I don't comment on anybody's pages anymore, because that's just inviting it. And so I get it a lot. I ignore a lot of it. I have finally gotten to the point where I realized I don't have to respond to everything. And so it's a lot easier. I've finally gotten big enough where it's not expected that I respond to everything. So now I can just pick and choose. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'm not going to respond. Like, I'm done. So you just get numb to it at some point. It's like if you're a referee in a sports game, right? Like, you might have issues when you're first doing rec and you got the overzealous dad yelling at you. But by the time you're in the NFL, like, that's just water right off your back.
Fair enough, bro. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. This was a fucking blast. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Carnivore JT, you know where to find him.